We interviewed Vice President Biden on Thursday, the day before the FBI director's announcement. But Hillary Clinton's email server, as well as hacked emails showing more coziness between the Clinton Foundation and corporations and foreign governments, were on our minds when we sat down in the vice president's ceremonial office. I asked him if it was inevitable there would be a conflict between the Clinton Foundation and Hillary Clinton's role as Secretary of State.
I think they've acknowledged that they could have done it better. The good news, thank God, is there's no evidence of anything that's been illegal. But it's like, for example, they've now said that when she wins, he's getting off the board. I hope when she wins, if she wins, he'll get off the board of the foundation. I think if they could go back and do it again, they'd probably make some changes. But
should they just shut it down if she wins and becomes president?
Well, it does too much good to shut it down. I mean, it really. I've not been the number one defender of the Clinton Foundation, but it's done too much good. So shifting it to other control of others beyond the Clintons, I think could be I think it's going to be necessary when if she becomes president.
Trust and honesty has been a big part of this campaign. Voters don't trust either of the two candidates. And I went back and looked at promises to keep. And you talk about your grandfather Finnegan and his lesson, which was public servants are obliged to level with everybody, whether or not they'll like what he, the public servant, has to say. Do you think that applies to Hillary Clinton's dealing with this private server that she set up?
Well, I think it's a combination of a couple things. One, I don't think she understood the gravity of setting it up. She thought it was, this was okay to do. And then when this woman has been so battered over the last 30 years. I think then when faced with this is a problem, I think instead of just cutting it and dealing with it immediately, there's always a inclination to overthink it. But I really do believe my grandfather said. I think people reward you being straightforward. My state of Delaware was it was a red state, not a blue state when I got out there. And I'd say things and people would come up and say, okay, well, at least I know where the kid stands. I still think it's the best policy, but when you have been on the other end of a concerted effort, justified or not justified, to undermine your credibility, I think you probably are in a different place in terms of how your instinct has to respond.
If she's in that other place with those instincts, does she need somebody, if she were to be president, to push against those instincts to keep what your grandfather?
Yeah, I actually do think she does, and I think she knows she does, and I think she's also knows that when she's elected, she's going to have to be prepared to be more open as president as to what her feelings are about things. But there's kind of a double standard, John. I get all this credit for being authentic and now even Biden gaffes are now, Biden tells the truth kind of thing. But I'm a guy. I go out and if I start talking about my beau and I get filled up, my son who died, they say, well, he's just a good, decent father, honorable man. If she were to do that, you'd have a chorus of she's playing the woman card here, she's crying. A little bit like Michelle. Anytime Michelle Obama said something strong, well, she's an angry black woman. There's a sector of the electorate and I think that has a tendency, at least over 30-some years with Hillary, to cause her to close rather than open.
When people talk about your candor, what they say is you say something true maybe ahead of time, maybe before it's all been worked out, and that's worked well for you politically. I think what I hear from voters about her is they say even when she's saying something that may be right, what they hear from her sounds like she's not being straight with them. That doesn't seem like a gender thing.
No, but Hillary said herself, she said, look, I'm not that good a candidate. I think she said, I'm not Bill or Barack. A lot of it has to do with personal style. And I do think she is more measured and she makes fewer mistakes than I make or most people I know. But I just think it's more, it doesn't go to her integrity or honesty, it goes to her style.
You send emails?
I don't. Let me back up. Occasionally I'll get an email from a family member, but I don't have my staff send me emails. If they do, they text me something. But I'm sure I have some emails, but the answer is no.
Are you happy these days that you don't?
I'm very happy that I don't have an awful lot of emails, but who knows? The way the Russians hack, they may have hacked into anything I have. I don't know.
Donald Trump says, how do you know it's the Russians who hacked into the DNC or into WikiLeaks? How do you know?
Think about what that says to the rest of the world. Here, the intelligence community of the United States government, the most potent military in the world with the most significant intelligence capability in the world, says flatly, we know it was out of Russia, and we know it was Putin, or we know it was the Russians. And a candidate for president already is fawning over Putin, says, well, how do they know? What does that do to the confidence of all our allies? That here you got the guy heading the grand old party, and it is a grand old party, saying, well, 17 American intelligence agencies confirmed this was done, but I don't think they know. I don't think they know. What does that say? It's a little bit like the president going out and saying, they tell me we got a good military, but I don't think we have much capacity. It's bizarre.
Is it just politics, or do you think there's something more?
I don't know whether he just doesn't know. I know I get criticized for saying this. He just may not be informed enough to know what he's saying. It's just, some of it is so out of the box, John. So far out of the box. It's hard to believe that he could be so devoid of the facts. So it's either deliberate attempt to undermine, or it is totally uninformed.
If we hear 17 intelligence agencies, if we read that in the press, how do we know? I mean, how does he know as a candidate, or is he being briefed?
He's being briefed. He's being briefed. These intelligence guys are coming in.
Yeah. So this isn't, he's just not reading this on the internet.
It's not on the internet. I mean, and you had the head of the intelligence community, Director Mr. Clapper, come out and say, confirm in front of all of you, this is what we have determined.
Question about Obamacare.
Yeah.
25% premium increases on those who buy insurance through the federal exchanges, ameliorated by subsidies. But some insurers are leaving the program. Is it in peril if the next president doesn't get some legislation to fix it?
No, but I appreciate, as usual, the way you asked the question. Of all the people who have insurance, 85% don't get their insurance through the insurance plan, this exchange. So that 25% doesn't apply to 85% of the population. Of those that it does apply to, as you said, the vast majority will get an increased subsidy for the increase in the premium. But there are things we have to do. We should be in a position where we are providing a greater subsidy for young people to get into the marketplace that can't afford to get in, because when they're in, what that does is bring in a whole group of healthy people into the system, instead of what's caused this increase in premiums, which is very sick people signed up and got in. But there's other things we have to do as well.
If those fixes aren't made, though, the trend line is not, if things stay as they are, no legislation to fix the problems you've identified, then it seems in peril.
Well, no, I don't think it's in peril. It's not working as well as it should, because here's what happens. You still have, no one can be denied health care for pre-existing condition in or out of the system. You still have children being able to stay on their parents' health care till they're age 26. You still have women not being able to be charged more than men. There's a whole range of things that still justify it, but it's not as good as it should be. It would not imperil it, causing it to be not able to function.
Where is this on the priority list for the new president? It seems like.
I think it's going to be very high on Hillary's, well, assuming it's Hillary, on her priority list.
It has to be.
I think it has to be. I think it's important.
We'll have more of our interview with the Vice President in our next half hour. Word leaked late last week that Vice President Joe Biden is a top contender for the job of Secretary of State if Hillary Clinton wins. Biden, however, signaled that he's not interested. We want to conclude today with the Vice President's reflections on his 47 years in public service and what he plans to do next. What does it mean to be an Obama whisperer?
Well, I had the advantage, I think it's fair to say, of knowing an awful lot of the people we brought into the cabinet longer and better than Barack. than the president. And although they had enormous respect for the president, they weren't as used to dealing with him as I was. So and he doesn't wear his feelings on his sleeve all the time. And so people would say...
And you wear them on both sleeves.
Unfortunately, it's a draw. The president kids, he said, you know, Joe and I, we make up for each other's shortcomings. He makes up for mine. He has very few. So what it means is I have his confidence. I am a close friend of his. He knows he can trust me 1,000%.
The number of lunches you will have, weekly lunches with the president, is dwindling.
Yeah. We're still going to hang out a little bit.
You're going to hang out after it's over?
Yeah, for real.
You might just have longer lunches.
Yeah, we may have longer lunches, yeah.
Do you talk about the fact that the exits?
Yeah, we do. We talk a lot about what each of us are going to do and what we might be able to do together. But the bottom line is both of us feel that there are the things that motivated us to get into politics are still things that shape our lives and our interests and make us happy. And so you're going to see the president deeply involved in a lot of the things he's been continued to be involved in. And I'm not going away. Everything from this issue of violence against women to income inequality to the cancer moonshot. I'm going to devote the rest of my life to this.
What's it going to feel? I mean, since you were 29.
I don't know. I must tell you, I know there's an awful lot that I will have access to do, but I have never, from the time I've actually been 26, every morning I've gotten up, somebody hands me a card that has my schedule on it, and I know what I'm about to do. I know what I want to work on, and so it's going to be an adjustment. I honestly don't. I've enjoyed. I have been so proud of being involved in public service that I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do it, other than the structure of American political system.
You've been asked 1,000 times if you regret not deciding not to run. Was there ever a moment in the last year where you said, boy, I'm glad I didn't run?
Well, I guess yes, in that some of the vitriol that exists today and some of the stuff that the other team's doing, I just am glad my grandkids, I sit and say, God, I mean, how do you respond to a guy on stage when I'm just happy. Let me put it another way. A woman who runs my office has a daughter that's in, I think, 6th grade. I called her on Columbus Day, which was a holiday, to check my schedule the next day. And I said, you watch the debate? And her comment was, my daughter had a girlfriend over from class. They were supposed to watch the debate. The first few minutes, I had to turn it off. I didn't want my daughter seeing this debate. The stuff of, anyway, so yeah, there's sometimes but look, I think I made the right decision for my family and for me, and I think Hillary's going to be a hell of a good president.
In 1972, when you announced you were running for the Senate, this is what you said.
God almighty, you did your homework.
We're divided people. We have too often allowed our differences to prevail among us. We have too often allowed ambitious men to play off those differences for political gain. We have too often retreated behind our differences when no one really tried to lead us beyond them. Feels like you could give that speech today.
I could, but I tried my best to lead us beyond them, and I think for a significant period of our time we did. History runs in cycles. I say to young people out there, they said, well, why would I get involved now with the dysfunction in government? We were more divided substantively when I ran and made that speech than today. The Vietnam War, the women's movement, the civil rights movement was still not finished. The whole environmental movement. I mean, it divided families. I mean, it divided friends, those things. People didn't speak to one another over them. And yet my generation we did get involved. We did make a difference. We did change things in the 70s and the 80s. But it moves, and the abuse of power is always just right there and reached for by people who shouldn't be in power. And we need people to speak up to it, speak out against it. And that's what I have tried to do my whole career. I don't make myself out to be a hero, but I don't think you'll find anybody in public life I dealt with that I've ever not tried to bridge the differences with, not be honest with.
On your last day of office, what are you going to do?
What I'm going to do is go home and begin to figure out what I do for the rest of my life. And I think I hope to be able to do the same things I'm doing now out of office.
Mr. Vice President.
Hopefully.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.